Well, greetings, Nomads. Ken Krell here with the incredible and sexy Scott Middleton.
I think that's me. That'll do. I'm the only one here, so that'll have to do.
Well, all the boys seem to think so. So
who have you been talking to?
I don't know, but there's always a cue.
A reputation?
There's always a cue waiting for you. Anyway, Scott and I bike together. We cycle together, and what I discovered is that Cycling Scott has a fetish. A bicycle fetish, as you can see here.
Almost a fetish, yes.
Yeah, for real.
But there's a practical reason to most of the fetish, so that's all right.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted us to talk today is because Scott travels a lot with his bike. And if you thought that traveling with a bicycle is cumbersome, like a big 10-speed, for example, Scott's got some stuff that he'll share with you that will rock your world. So, Scott, tell us how you're traveling the world with a bicycle.
Well, it's not uncommon, but certainly folding bicycles. In fact, I retired 2015. In that first year, I traveled around a lot of places I hadn't traveled a whole lot. Anyway, Asia and then parts of Europe. And actually, I thought, I'm going to buy a bike because I already belong to a gay and lesbian cycling group here in Sydney. I have done for many years, great group of friends, and we've had some trips on that. Anyway, so I buy a normal size bike. And actually I cycled from Rome to Florence, all very exotic, and that was nice over about 6 days, really lovely. And I continue with the bike, but I use buses and trains, and sometimes they don't like them. It's too big, and it's dirty and that sort of thing. So anyway, I end up leaving it behind and coming back and talking to some friends here in Sydney. And someone said to me, and I'd said, maybe a folding bike would be a really better option. And it's smaller and more practical and blah, blah, blah. And a friend of mine said, another friend's got an English bike and, go and have a look at that. So we go and have a look, and it's, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch or anything for Brompton, but Brompton is made in England. It's got quite a long history. It's probably the most compact. Not necessarily the lightest, although they do make some different models. But the whole concept of any folding bike is, yes, how small, how convenient, and to travel. And since then, from 2016, so that's even forgetting the COVID years, probably 6 or 7 years of at least 2 trips a year, 6 months, so I've traveled quite a lot, and I've taken the bike to nearly everywhere. It's probably had 70 flights around Asia and Europe. I should say you do have to check it in. It's not quite that light, so the bike itself is around the 11-12 kilo mark, and then you put your tools and you pack all the things that the security immigration people at the airport might pinch. So you have to pack all your cutlery and bike tools and things like that in with the bike. Anyway, normally within a 15 kilo range, so you have to make sure your luggage caters for that. So I can carry the luggage on board, my backpack and my actual bike bag, which does fit on the bike. Another unique thing about the Brompton, you actually can buy luggage that clips on the front of the bike, and the bike carries it, not you. Anyway, that's just a small thing. But as far as the Brompton goes, I found it, it's the lightest. It's the most international. You can really buy it everywhere. Whilst initially I did buy a brand new, and they're not cheap. If it was made in probably Taiwan or something, it would be just as good at a lot cheaper. But anyway, it's a good quality product. It's international. You can get parts everywhere, pretty much. Certainly the US and places like throughout Europe, a lot of Asia too. Asia is a big market for them now. Because they're compact, people can live in a certain place and still put the bike in the corner and just tuck it away. And you can see even here, there's 3 of them there. So it basically folds in thirds, and it makes it like a medium-sized suitcase size.
It's like a bike shop here, actually.
Yeah, it is. So and it's I'm not saying it's super light, but that's the bike. And yes, if you're dragging it around an airport, I got untangled.
Oh no!
Dragging it around an airport. Yeah, it's not that light, but certainly buses, trains, the flights themselves, ferries. It's the most compact.
This isn't bad. I mean, you're gonna build some muscle with this.
That's right. So well, then in the other arm you put your own luggage, which is maybe 10 kilos. You do pack pretty light when you're thinking about most sorts of traveling. I do travel like a backpack traveling, so budget travel, cheaper flights, cheaper accommodation, that sort of thing. And but just to have the practicality of arriving somewhere, even from the airport, put the bike together and you cycle into town, or you cycle around if it's not that far. So you your internet tells you all your maps, where I'm going, and yeah, it might be a bus or a train, and you can, sometimes they just want you to put it in a bag to keep it clean. I would normally travel in a bag anyway, so that's not a problem. Certainly sometimes in smaller places, I've actually arrived, got out there, it's only a few Ks to the city, and I've cycled there. So, you know, and from even here in Sydney, which a lot of you probably don't know, but the airport's actually only 5 to 6 Ks from the centre of City where I happen to live. And I can cycle all the way and all the way back. So, you know, so transport.
So when you go on a trip, you're actually taking the bike to the airport, cycling to the airport, getting on the plane.
That's right.
Cool.
I fold the bike out here, and I will put the bag on it, blah, 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 do all the cycling. So get to the other end, of course, I have to stop, pull all the bag off, fold the bike up, wrap it up, put it in the bag, and then go to the check-in counter. So I'll normally actually go right up to the check-in counter where the queue is, and I'll just put aside, and I'll do it. It takes me maybe 10 to 15 minutes to pack everything away, be all ready. If there's a trolley, stick it on the trolley, of course, that's great, and then wheel it through the check-in.
That's cool.
Check it in, and then leave the bike, and that stays there.
And you're done.
And then, you know, and then you just go and do your normal immigration stuff. So
that's brilliant.
And in fact, the other bag, actually, while I've got it, I have got it here. So that's, for instance, my main luggage. It gets a lot bigger than that.
Oh, that holds tons.
That can, they say 10 kilos, but I can actually probably fit more.
Yeah.
And you just roll the top down, and because it's got, again, this bracket, and that fits on.
Oh, yeah, I see the bracket.
On this bracket on the bike.
That's bigger than I thought.
We'll fold out one later, and I'll just show you. But that's a unique thing.
Yeah.
Pannier bags. A lot of bikes, and even big bikes, can have what they call pannier bags, and they might fit either side of the front wheel, either side of the back wheel, and that's great. That's perfect. They're generally smaller, and also the front wheels, especially, that can sort of pull to the side that you have the luggage. But this sits actually on the frame at the very front. So it balances the bike. It's also a bit more weight at the front instead of at the back where your body is. That works. It works. And it's, you know, a lot of people, I do some longer distance stuff, but generally I'll do it more around cities, especially in places like Asia where it's really hot. And you think, I'm not cycling 100 Ks in real heat. People do, and maybe if the weather's appropriate, you think you can. But I don't necessarily do a lot of long distance, but I'll get to somewhere, put my luggage where I'm staying, pack out, and then, you know, I've got my phone out and my computer or telling me these are the things to see, and I just get on the bike.
Which is so cool. Tell us about your experience in Athens, because the one day in Athens.
Athens was just a really good example of what you can do. I've been to Athens a couple of times, but first time without the bike. Second time, yes, with the bike, and I've only got really a day and a bit, and I've got backpacker accommodation, which is really great, no problem, in the town. And I said, well, what's the main thing? Of course, yeah, I've seen the Acropolis, but of course I want to see it again. And someone had said to me, oh, when you get there, you can get an Acropolis ticket. I don't know, it might be 20 euros or something like that, and you can just see the Acropolis. But of course, Athens has got lots of other historic sites, and I think there might have been about 8 or 9 altogether. And for another 10 euros or something like that, you can get all of the sites. Now, most people would still think, oh, because I think it's still only a 24-hour thing, so you have to sort of think about doing it within one day. But I thought, no, I'll buy the extra. It was a sunny day, of course, as it often is. And I thought, right, do the Acropolis, spend a couple of hours there, and I've locked the bike up near me, so I'd cycled from my accommodation to nearby, found an appropriate post, a very good lock, really important, because I have had bikes stolen. And so locked it there, went up, did that, came back, and said, okay, got out my map basically and worked out where they were, what's the next one? And I cycled, and I got to all the sites in the one day, and even by middle afternoon, I think I remember getting back into the main sort of square in Athens.
Syntagma Square,
and that's right, and had a coffee, and it actually started to rain, so I didn't get wet, and my day was, you know, fine, and I managed to see them all, walk around. So I still had to park them up, had to find a spot to park, lock the bike. So normally street posts are fine, anything that you feel is pretty solid and safe, and then got to the mall. So, but even in places like London and Paris and you know, big popular cities that often have reasonable cycleways and infrastructure already, you know, and getting accommodation again, even I've had quite reasonable accommodation in both those cities. Like when I say reasonable, 25 Australian dollars, which is
wow. In London?
Yeah, in London and Paris. Now that's not right at the dot of Westminster, no, but it's like near King's Cross Station and so on. Still, maybe 10 to 15 minutes cycle from there on cycleways or reasonably. I'm a fairly confident cyclist, so I like to make sure I wear bright colours. I indicate, can look at people, and so far. It's been fine. So common sense. But if you're a comfortable cyclist, but you don't have to be. Some cities are better. Certainly, some cities in Europe, especially, are really well set up for cycling and getting about, and they cater for it really well.
And these little bikes. One thing I wanted to be clear about this, because I've ridden with you on these little bikes. I've not been on one. I really should try one.
Yeah.
But when we go out on our rides together, half of us are on the big boy bikes, if you want to call them that. And then some of you guys are on the small ones that I've thought of them as commuter bikes, not as anything significant, but we'll do 25, 30K and 3-4 hours on the bike, and they're on these little baby bikes, and they're as fast, if not faster, than me.
Well, but they're not probably faster, but and certainly you're right. Commuting, actually, Brompton and many other bikes, they promote as a city bike. So some people just like to get from there flat upstairs, down on the street, fold the bike, go to work even, fold it back up, put it under the desk at the office or in some sort of storage. At the end of the day, the reverse, back up, sits in the corner or in a cupboard even, So that's the beauty of the folding bike. It's so compact. Yes, I've got a few bikes. I've got a road bike, a mountain bike, things like that. So they don't get necessarily much use. But
it's the shrine.
It's embarrassing. But the idea of if there's actually one bike you want to buy, it has to be folding. Now, it may not be a Brompton because they're, in Australian terms, they're around $3,000 new, and there's electric model and titanium. I'm doing the sales pitch now, but generally the basic normal bike is around $3,000. But I've bought most of mine as second hand, so depending on where you are, the market might be reasonable for to spend $1,000 to $2,000, $1,500, that sort of thing is not an uncommon sort of price.
We're talking Australian dollars here, guys.
That's Australian dollars. So, what's that? 2,000 American, 3,000 American, 3,000 Australian is about 2,000 American.
Yeah, run your exchange on that.
Yeah, and euro similar.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the practicality, if there's one bike you're going to have, is a folding bike, and the Brompton is the smallest and the most compact. A lot of women certainly find them very easy because once the bike's established, it's really just adjust the seat, which is on a post. It's a quick release, and you just get that, and then you're off. And you do sit very upright. So with a lot of the fancier bikes, you'll probably tend to lean over more, maybe get backache, things like that if you're not a regular cyclist. And if you're going all day, that's not always the most comfortable. But with the Brompton and with many folding bikes, they're all a lot of similar. You do sit more upright, so you see a view. Your back's generally pretty straight. Very comfortable. They're reasonably fast. I certainly wouldn't say they're the fastest, but and the gearing is that people think, oh, you have to pedal more because of the small wheels. But no, of course, the gearing is designed that the distance that you might do on a big bike for one revolution, well, the pedaling will be the same on a Brompton, even though it might have gone 2 or 3 times. But the pedaling to get you that far is almost the same. Pedal height is the same, so most bikes actually are designed that sort of way. The actual height where the pedal bottom bracket is at the same height. So your foot on the ground, all that sort of thing to the pedal is pretty much the same. So that's generally the same. But yes, it has smaller wheels, and that's not a problem. So I found it never really holding up, and even with the bag on the front up hills, yeah, occasionally if it's really steep you might have to hop off and push as you would with many bikes, but no, it's very comfortable, and feels a bit different when you hop from a big bike to a little bike, but it only takes a few minutes for you to sort of just get used to the steering and just feel it is a bit different. They do have a bit of inbuilt suspension, not a lot. There's another bike here, different brand, Birdie, which often people sort of compare a Brompton and a Birdie. They're not actually that comparable. They're both folding, both similar size wheels. They have actually some fancier models, similar money. The Brompton is the best traveller by a mile. But the Birdie is a beautifully comfortable bike. It has a really elaborate front suspension, and it's so comfortable. So I use that actually around town. I don't bother folding it. It's generally my sort of go-to bike and the Brompton's there as a backup, and having bikes, of course, is when you have a friend who might like to have a ride.
Fair enough.
Yeah, oh, I've got a spare bike, no problem. What do you like? And we just work that out. But certainly the idea of travelling really makes sense, and just to have the practice. Sometimes you arrive somewhere and you might not use the bike. The transport might be so good, the weather might be lousy, and you think, I'm in town, everything's nearby, I don't need the bike. And it sits in the hotel room, fine. But then the next place you might say, okay, now I really want the bike, and you've got it. So, even recently I went to Japan, and I think the Brompton in a bag, in a Shinkansen fast rail, the train, super fast bullet trains, that is virtually the only bike you can take. And it just fits in the luggage rack with all the other suitcases. So you don't have to put it in the luggage area of the train. And the buses generally wrap it up. Sometimes they don't even know it's a bike. Sure. So it's just a black soft bag, but it'll go under the bus with all the other suitcases. Generally it's as I said, a reasonable size.
Given the size of that bag, when we talked at dinner, I didn't have a sense that it was that big, right? So basically, that can replace a backpack, or take a backpack that's foldable for like a day pack.
Yeah, and they have smaller ones. It's for smaller ones that people might think, yes, I just want a bit of clothing and a bit of food or whatever. So you have a smaller one.
But if you're going to be gone for a few weeks or a month, and you want to take the bike with you, that bag is enough to give you everything you need, other than potentially like a day pack for your laptop.
Well, that's right, and because even if I was even saying I'm on a trip and I fill this up and I do my trip, and I'm in maybe accommodation where I can store things, I might say, okay, for the day I'll take out my bag, and I put my clothing, my shirts are in a seal bag, my pants, because if you get wet, at least if they're in plastic bags, that will help you, and it keeps them organised too. But you can obviously fold this down, so I could still put this on the bike with a much smaller amount of stuff, food, and it's no different, and then you unclip it, it's got a handle, it's got a strap, it's very smart, and that's what Brompton's had a lot of time. That's the first designed in the 70s, started to make in the 80s, and they're still very similar to what they originally designed.
This looks to me like you're traveling like a local, where you get to a place and you can just hang out and you still get your exercise too, so you can do your cardio and get your laps.
That's true. For those of us that have the cycling physique, and people, it's great. It is a plus that even when you're traveling, it helps keep you that little bit fit, and it's just to use it all the time is great.
Every Friday morning, I think you coordinated the Friday Flyers, didn't
Well,
you?
we have a little group, so whilst there's the main group, Sydney Spokes, promotional, and then they often have Sunday rides, and different rides, every week's different. And then, I don't know, 8 years or so ago, a few of us weren't working on Fridays, and we said, why don't we just get a little group together, or just see who's interested, at a big international park near us, which has a big cycling circuit within the park.
Beautiful.
And it's like Centennial Park, it's over 100 years old, and it's really lovely, and we thought, okay, we'll just see who's interested, but we'll do the same routine, same time, for about 1 hour, which is about 5 circuits, about 20 Ks. So depending on how many Ks you might have to get there, about 20 Ks, and then we go for coffee for another hour and chat, and then we all just go off and do our thing. So, by say 10 o'clock, we've all had a nice, so it's a routine. If someone comes once a week, right? Once a month, once a year, it doesn't matter. The routine is the same.
I've done it once.
And it's just a WhatsApp. Well, you'll get there.
You're
busy at that time.
I got there at the wrong time. Too,
yeah,
which was,
we have to change the time just for. No, maybe not.
Like, oh, at the wrong time. But I was back in Centennial yesterday. Actually, did 3 laps yesterday.
Yeah, great.
But it's beautiful. So the point I'm making is that if you end up in a different city and we find a bike club that's got something going on, you got your bike with you. So you can participate with others and other people that are part of the Pride Nomad family that may be in the place you are that don't have an extra bike. You got a bike you can play. I want to ask you one other thing. What is the most unique, interesting situation that happened to you because you were on the traveling with a bike?
Well, often, of course, even just that it's unusual that people don't know what it's like, and you might go on a train or a bus, and they'll look at it, or when it's folded up like this, and they'll think, my gosh, what is it? Some people rudely have said, is that a circus bike? No. Or a child bike, a children's bike? No. And then you unfold it, and literally it takes 20 seconds to fold it up and to unfold it 20 seconds. It's really, that's an ideal thing. A lot of other bikes need things to be unscrewed and screwed together, and no, you don't with this. And we could probably we'll do a quick demonstration. I might mess it up, but anyway, but it's literally 20 seconds, and it clicks together. Screw up a couple of little hinges, and put the bag on the bike if I've got the bike, and helmet on, which you have to wear in Australia. And then you're off, and it's so good from that point of view. And if you suddenly need to pack it up, arrive somewhere, a restaurant, and if there's maybe nowhere to hang it up, you can fold it up and almost tuck it in under the table, things like that. So the practicality of that is great, that it's so quick, and so that it's really clever. In that folding process, there's nothing to detach or to attach. Even one of the pedals has to fold, and it's a folding pedal. And that's simple too. So it's all attached.
Oh yeah, there it is. I see it folded up there, and this one's not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Only one. Yeah. That's really so cool. That's clever. And so they've thought. And originally the bike was steel, and I'd say it probably was about 15 kilos. I'd say, but gradually, of course, more parts are aluminium, particularly the wheels, the gearing, the handlebars, and there is a titanium model which is almost a third less, but 3 times the price. So you have to balance up these things, but mainly so about 12 kilos is the standard weight now, 11 to 12, and they've even got you can even get a set of tools that fit within the frame, so they're just a bit unique-y things.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I normally would carry on the back of my bag is a bottle holder. And I use a drink bottle, with a large opening top, plastic one, for my tools and that sort of thing. So so that fits there. And there's zip pockets and various front panels. So anyway, these sorts of things are quite versatile.
So smart.
And some of the brands have even managed to fit the bracket onto it, but that's not a standard thing. Where the Brompton does sit it as standard. Nearly every bike will come with it. If it doesn't, you can buy it, and the fittings will already be there, and just screw it straight on.
This just makes your whole travel adventure much more seamless, which I love. There's something you mentioned at the beginning that I want to just back into. First trip that you were on, you bought a bike while you were out, and you bought a cheap bike.
Yeah.
And you bought a regular
normal size.
normal size bike, and you didn't like the bike.
Well, it was fine for the job, but it was difficult to transport anything that wasn't actually the cycling. So even you couldn't fit it in a car; it was way too big. Buses sometimes they would, and because it's not. If I didn't actually have a bag, and I don't think I did, they were often, oh no, I don't want your dirty bike in my bus, even though it was underneath. And certainly trains, things like that were difficult, so I didn't really do any trains. And I did one flight, it cost a bomb. I had to get a big box, pack it in the box, adjust the handlebars, the pedals, all that stuff, and transport cost quite a lot. And I thought, oh, this is for the birds. So that's when I heard about the folding and got to see this. In fact, at the very same time, believe it or not, that this friend lent me the bike for a week to give it a try. He had to show me several times how to fold it, because there is an order of what you do. Anyway, that's fine once you know that. And then at the same time, Aldi had a cheap Chinese bike for $170.
Aldi was selling?
Aldi had a Chinese, not a Brompton of course, it had a folding bike. Okay, you know what, I'm going to buy it so we can compare. So it was a lot heavier, like it was at least 15 or 16 kilos. It had only 6 gears, which were much more limiting. The folding was, like many, in half. But that's not good enough, because the half means, yes, the wheels come together, but the middle frame is sticking out, where the Brompton folds in thirds and eliminates that. So the back wheel folds into the middle, and then the front folds into the over the top of that. So the wheels and the frame are together. So as you can see on this, there's not much overhang that's not wheels and the main frame. And then you push the seat down, and that locks it together, and the handlebars, and that's how you get it like this. And they all lock together. So now I can pick it up, and it won't spring out and fall apart until that all revolves around the seat. When you pull the seat up, yes, it will fold out. So that locks it together. So that's so clever.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's unique in that way. So
I wanted to get back to what is the most. So that bike that you use, you sold it at the end, right?
Well, actually, I left it behind. Yes, it broke down. I'm not saying that any bike won't do that, but I thought, it's not worth actually spending much money on it, because was I going to take it back to Australia? No. So I think, okay. So I sort of got left behind, but. But then since then, and I mean, I've had a few different Bromptons, but the one I have now, which is a slightly different one, is a black one. Well, I'll just show you this. Not that it's not necessarily different, but it's it's a bit older and a bit scratched, but it's perfect. So I have the handlebars exactly as I like them. I have changed the seat post to titanium. The rear triangle on this side, where is it? Where's my triangle? Oh, of course, here it is. The rear triangle is actually a titanium one because I had baggage handlers mishandle it 22, the first year back after COVID. Clearly got dropped heavily, and so you do run that risk. But I mean, I've had 60 or 70 flights, and it's only well, maybe not the only one, but the one that had the most serious damage. Generally, there's not been much that you can't cope with. Anyway, so I did actually replace it with titanium. It cost a lot more, but it's half the weight. So you think, okay, just those things to help try and keep it as low as is practical. And but it's so that's my the one I will travel with is this one, and yeah, so that's the one. And
Scott, I think back to when I left Sydney a while back, and I took my bike with me. Just the cost to box it up was $70. You know, to buy the box.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, bike shops have all these boxes, but they sell them. You know, so even though they're trash, they sell them. And then it was like $70 to box to put it back together. I could put it back together afterwards, but. You know, and that was a hassle and a half to do. And then I don't remember what
the additional costs for the flight.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely would have been.
Was it charged? I don't remember.
You see, I can get that in. In fact, some flights, yes, budget airlines, which I normally would use. Sometimes, if it's like here in Australia, we have them too, where there's just hand luggage.
Yes.
Okay, you have to then buy the first level of luggage, but they don't care what it is mostly. But if you've already got a flight with a 20 or 30 kilo luggage allowance, that's fine. They don't care what it is. So as long as it's wrapped up and padded, when they check it in, they'll often say, "What is it?" "Oh, it's a bike." No problem. There's only one budget airline which I do use a lot, AirAsia. I'll mention it.
Yeah.
There's good and bad. You have to pay your luggage, no problem. But they actually do consider the bike sports equipment, so it happens to often be a little bit there again. But on the whole, it's not a big problem. It's still cheaper to do it that way than if I was to fly another airline. No names mentioned, with the normal luggage allowance. The kilos are not a problem, but they might check what it is, but it won't generally ever be a problem. So I think it's not difficult from that point of view. So as long as you sort of know a few things, but some of the airlines, Scoot is another one I use a lot.
Yeah.
They don't care what it is, just one level of luggage. You just have to make sure the kilos are right. So I generally need to have at least 15 kilos, or if it's 20, then I will also pull out my clothes or things, anything heavy out of my main luggage, put it in around the bike, which will help pad it as well, to try and get that up to the 20 kilos, so they don't then say, "Oh, your hand luggage is too heavy." So that will help lighten my hand luggage.
The Asian airlines are really anal retentive about baggage and stuff.
Can be, yeah.
Other than like the main carriers, like you're flying the Singapore Airlines or Thai, you can take your bag and put it up in the overhead. Not necessarily that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, on that bag, when I fill that up, admittedly, if I've just done that process, I've emptied a bit of stuff into pad the bag. Fine. So when I get on board, yes, I will put this up in the upper luggage, and I'll have my backpack with me at my feet. And if I have food or reading material or a jacket if it's going to get cold, things like that, I will have that with me. And this sticks up the stairs, and no problem. It fits in those luggage, even when it's quite fullish. Because they get on. I think they say 10 kilos, but allowance. But I think I've probably had a little bit more than that from time to time, because I'm a light guy. I'm only 64 kilos. So the bike itself, they also say 100 kilo capacity for the bike, and I have seen some big guys on bikes, but generally the Brompton will cater for that quite well. This just gives you so much more flexibility in your travel, and allows you to have some remarkably unique experiences. So let me give you one quick one just before we finish up, and then we'll go and unpack. What's been the most interesting travel experience you've had as a result of having the bike? Gosh, I can't think of anything offhand. But as I said earlier a bit about on a transport, people look at it, and you hop off a bus, for instance, and you get it, and then you undo the unfolding, and they're mesmerised. Sometimes I think, wow, this is just so amazing, it's just a folding bike, it's nothing really tricky, but of course it does transform something small into a normal everyday item that most people are familiar with, and think wow, it looks crazy. The beautiful thing about Brompton of bright colours, that's very clever marketing. They build one bike that's virtually the same, but they say, well, we're going to make it in 10 or 12 colours each year so people can have differences. So then they can spruce it up a bit, add little things. And they actually have things around the world, many places. They'll have a Brompton Urban Challenge once a year where people come along with their different, and they've got little paraphernalia. They'll dress up in generally English, tweeds and checks and tartans and all that sort of thing. It's a hugely fun thing. There is actually quite a community in some countries. They're actually maybe not bad cyclists, but they'll buy these bikes, and they're not cheap. In some, more so, the cost is probably similar, but what an American might pay and what an Indonesian might pay will be totally different. And for their values of their income levels, things like that. So it becomes an expensive exercise, but it's a bit like a club. I'm not saying you need that, but sometimes when I have seen another person on Bromptons or even folding bikes generally, a tourist, it's quite chatty, so you start a chat of conversation. And I remember in Penang in Malaysia only last year, there's food, street food's a big thing there. And I'm walking actually with my Brompton, and I see two guys on Bromptons, and they come and they pull over and they start to get ready to stop and have some food. So I go over and say hi, and they're quite new Bromptons, very flashy looking, and they've actually only come from Kuala Lumpur with some public transport, and then they're doing some country riding, and doesn't matter, and enjoying it. And the Bromptons again, they're available there, and that people, once they sort of realise that there is a practicality that you can travel, and as I said, even of course in taxis, these will fit in a taxi or airport transport when they're folded up. In fact, I have a little car, and which I don't use very much, but I actually had the other day, I had the opportunity, they had two bikes, and they fitted both next to each other in the floor of the back. It's a hatchback. Oh. And I was actually surprised that they would fit. Boom, boom. And so they are surprisingly compact. And, so to take it on a holiday, even a car holiday, which I've done too, we've had a couple of Bromptons in the back, because I should say also, when I started, even when we, in that week when the very first guy showed me, I decided I would buy, two other guys said they would at the same time, Rob and Bruce. So we all bought 3 together. When we went to pick them up a week later, when they arrived, and already 2 more people bought them. By now I know at least 30 or 40 people that I know, let alone more other people that I've met casually with them that I don't know. So riding, folding bikes, yes, but Brompton is easily the most common. And when people have just thought the practicality of Singapore, every second bike is a Brompton. So it's places like that, just amazing where it's caught on.
So if you're going to consider traveling and being gone for a while and want the control of your own destiny without having to depend on an Uber or a bike or whatever else, this may be exactly the way to go for you.
Yeah.
Scott, thanks. This has been this is great. I mean, we talked at dinner about this, and I had pictures and stuff, and I was like, let's actually show you what Scott's got, because I've seen the bikes. I've never seen them folded. But when we ride together, I'd seen, and I'm looking like, why are you guys riding these bikes when you could have a big bike? And I see why now.
Yeah.
And I see why you can travel with that so much better. So I'm about to now go start looking for my own Brompton as well.
Yep. Explore the second-hand market first. See what you think. And depending on whether your city is flat or there are a couple of different gearings. So just in our case, what they call the 6-speed just has as much gearing as you can, which is a hub gear. Without getting into practical things, there's 2 sets of gearing. Anyway, it allows you the best chance of catering for hills, which is, when you're traveling, of course, you're going to be sometimes in hilly places. So they do make a few different models to help cater for that. But yeah, it's a wonderful bike, and I'm so glad I've found about them. And yes, I've got a bit addicted in some ways, but it's and as I said, they're becoming electric and some lighter weight ones, so they're really changing finally. They're a bit slow, but nevertheless, the quality is really good. The resale is really good, so you can generally buy them and think, okay, what I'm paying now, I will be able to get still a good percentage when I look to sell it onwards. Yeah.
That's a good plan.
So market's good.
So the bike becomes almost free.
Yeah, a little bit that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
low maintenance, and you're maintaining it too. Maintaining it, not difficult. If you hopefully got parts available, but I've been overseas getting a tyre. You know, I was able to next day sort of have it delivered, whatever, within the country. So you know that was in Lithuania. You know, so Europe does cater for it well, but parts are generally fairly available. Anyway, okay. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, appreciate it.
No,
Awesome.
no problem. Yeah, good to see you.
Okay, now let's go take the bike apart. We'll put it back together.
All right. Well, this is basically it ready to travel. So it's fairly locked together, and I'll show you how that works. So it really only has about 5 steps to do. So the last thing is the seat, and that's what locks it. So mainly I will push out the here, one hinge, just turn it. That's done. Then actually I'll do the seat next. And now that when I do that, the bike can open up. Now this one is just grab it on the frame, 2 bits, keep the front wheel in line.
Oh my God, that's so easy. Look at that.
And that one, that locks in itself. And then this one is down here, and a similar hinge to this one here winds in here. So I just turn that up. And this bike I've actually changed the pedals. Then I would fold out the pedal, and I'm ready to go. And that luggage thing I was talking about here, so this bracket fits on this. So it just sits in, and I push it down, and that clicks it in. And I'm ready to ride with my luggage. So my luggage is here, that's sort of filled up, whatever, and I'm ready to go. And yeah, and it's just a standard, and off you go. So to do it in reverse, of course, the little release here, so luggage comes off. So this is what you do when you're at the airport or at the train station or wherever, or even in your hotel. I might have cycled up to the hotel, checking in. Now I fold it up to put it in my room. So then the release here of the back, and that folds it. And when you're even like that, you can leave it standing like that, so that you don't have to fold it further if you don't need to. But then the next one here, so undo that hinge there, and just push the pedal around there. So these things you sort of know. Keep it parallel, so don't fold the wheel back, you keep it parallel. So I just fold it like that. See, it swings here, no problem. And there's a hook onto the frame, and again, it can stand there by itself too. So then the last sections, this one, it folds down, clicks in, locks together, but the bike would still spring out, so I now need to push this down. And when that does, it pushes against the back wheel and sort of locks everything in place. Clip the close, and there I go.
That's brilliant.
So now I'm ready to put it in the taxi, in the train, or to now pad it up, put it in a bag to go on a flight.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
So it's just
magic trick.
it really is.